As you like, some program.
I'm sorry, that's a vague answer. You just said, what does that mean? That's where we start, and where do we stop?
There's a stop, where the last one stopped.
I understand that. Where do we stop today?
As you like. This is, you can read here or longer, as you like.
Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Shari Prabhu's Transcendental Diary from Sri Vrindavan Dham, 1975, 1976. Back in Prabhupada's room after breakfast, Hansadutta read out some particularly ecstatic letters from America describing the book distribution. Prabhupada's enthusiastic response to them was clear evidence that, as he said in class, he is fanning to bring back the fire of spiritual consciousness in the hearts of the conditioned souls. He has declared the entire world an open house for the introduction of Krishna consciousness. The letters show just how seriously his disciples are applying themselves in the task. In a BBT report, Rameshwar informed Srila Prabhupada that this month they printed 350,000 English Bhagavad Gitas, with 500,000 more planned in hardbound. Srimad Bhagavatam 6th Canto, Part 2 was at the printers, and Part 3 was in production. A record number of Back to Godheads are also going out. Rameshwar concluded enthusiastically, "Our only desire is to surrender our lives to help publish and distribute millions of your Divine Grace's wonderful books." Here in LA, they're selling over 200,000 BTGs this month of December, more than even the entire Radha Damodar party combined. Of course, Radha Damodar is selling more big books than anyone else. Devotees are more enlivened in the USA than I've ever seen for distributing your books. This will be the biggest month ever. Already, 1 million BTGs is not enough for this month. Nothing pleases Srila Prabhupada more than hearing how his books are being printed and sold. He wrote back, "You keep your enlivened position. I was just talking to Hamsadutta about the good fortune of America, that Krishna consciousness is there. And if you can cover the whole world with Krishna consciousness, that will be good for the whole world." You stop there? Yeah, okay. That will be good for the whole world. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam 5:14-21. Kadachit Bhagna Mana Dangstro Urjana Dandashukar Alabdha Nidra Shano Pyatita Hridayena Anukshiyamana Vijnano Kadachit Pagnamana Dangstro, Durjana Dandashukar, Alabda Nidrakshano, Vyatita Hridayena Anukushiyam, Hridayena Anukushi Yamana, Vigyano, Andakupe Dhapat Patati. Hare Krishna. Kadachit, sometimes, yeah, Kadachit, sometimes, Pagnamana, Dangstraha, whose teeth of pride are broken. Durjana, Dandashukaihi, by the envious activities of evil men, were compared to a kind of serpent. Alabdha, Nidra, Shanaha, who does not get an opportunity to sleep. Vyatita, Hridayena, by a disturbed mind. Anukshiyamana, gradually being decreased. Vijnanaha, whose real consciousness. Antakupe, in a blind well. Antavat, like illusion. Patati, he falls down. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. Om Jnana Timidantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadhati Tapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabatutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinamanto Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Holi Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're hearing the explanation of the forest of so-called enjoyment. the conditioned soul comes to the material world with the idea of enjoying, but he gets something else. First of all, Hare Krishna, my obeisances to Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj, to all the devotees. Hare Krishna. So, what you see is not what you get. You get something very much different from what we imagined, what we see in our imagination. Narada had spoken of this forest of enjoyment in cryptic terms. Of course, Prabhupada, when he translates those verses in the earlier chapter, he sort of unpacks them so that you get the purport on the spot. You don't have to wait until you get here. But here is where the meaning is explained by the Bhagavatam itself. So, and Prabhupada, of course, explains the meaning in both places, so you can't miss it. Kadachit, sometimes, Pagnamana Dangstra. Sometimes the conditioned soul has his pride broken. Mana means pride or sense of self-esteem, self-worth, prestige. Or, yes. And Dangstra means broken. Bhagna means broken. Damstra, yeah, the teeth of pride. Mana Dangstra, one is very proud. Either he's proud, he's got beautiful teeth, quite the television profile, or he's got fierce teeth for tearing up the opposition, the enemies. But either way, now his teeth are broken, so he's toothless. He has no power. This happens. Great men ascend to a high position, and then they're brought down. The Nixons, the Mussolinis, so many. They achieve a high post, and then they're reduced to nothing. I was reading, when I was writing my book, there was some Gothic king or something who was captured by the Romans, and then brought into, paraded through the streets of Rome. The victorious generals would come back and parade, just like these days they have military parades and they show off their missiles and all of that. So in Rome they would show off the loot that they'd gotten and the enemies that they defeated. So the enemies would be there, if they were still alive, in chains, paraded through the streets and laughed at and hooted. These were men who were leaders of the world. In the Bhagavatam, we have the kings who were entrapped by that Jarasandha. They're kings of the world, but they were reduced to beggars, and not beggars, but emaciated like skeletons. They were nothing. After being great kings, they were dirty and ill-fed, and they were nothing. So, Pagnamana, their pride was destroyed. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sambhavitasya Chakirtir Maranada Dirichite. For a respectable person or a person who's received honor, dishonor is maranad, worse than death. Sambhavitasya Akirti, to have his reputation lost, to be defamed, is worse than death. quoting Shakespeare too many times these days, but I'll do it again because he's got a good line. A king of England was reduced in that way, and he says, "Oh, that I were as great as is my grief. I wish that I were as great as my grief. Oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name. If I hadn't been so big, to be so small now wouldn't be so painful. Oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name. Or that I could forget what I once was, or not remember what I must be now." Also in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, "Vayad ranadu paratam manksante tvam Maharata Buhumato budva yasasi lagavam." Let's find it again, right? That's actually Tavahita Nindantas Tavas Samartyam Tato Dukutarang Nukim Vayaranadu Paratam Manksante Tvam Maharata. Yesham Shatvam Buhumatam Budva Yasusi Lagam. All the great generals, everyone will say that you ran away from the battlefield, that you were just a coward. You're going to make a show that you're the great moralist, but people will just say that you were scared out of your wits and you left the battlefield, that you couldn't face Bhishma, Drona, Karna. And the Maharatis, the great, that's what the great Maharatis will think, the great fighters. And Yesham Shatram Bahumato, they've had a great estimation of your ability, Bahumata. But Bhutva Yasati Lagavam, that opinion will go to hell. They'll just, Prabhupada said they'll consider you a fig, which means nothing. Avachyavadams Chabuhun, Vadishyanti Tavahita. Everyone will speak of your infamy. Avachyavadam, stinging words. Nindantas tapasamartyam. They'll just badmouth you. Tato dukataram nukem. What could be more painful for you than this? Sambhavitas yachagyutir maranada tirichite. Why? Because you're abandoning your prescribed duty. You're abandoning your prescribed duty. So sometimes it so happens one abandons his prescribed duty and then he's defamed. Or the world being what it is, sometimes you carry out your prescribed duty and you're defamed. That's the world. Prabhupada told the story about the man and boy and the horse. You know that story? There was a man and a boy, and a horse, and they were going from one town to another. So the man was riding on the horse, and the boy was, leading the horse. And the townspeople said, "Just see this cruel man. He's riding on the horse and making the boy walk." So then they got to the next town. This time, the man thought better of it, so he had the boy on the horse. And he led the horse. And then people said, "Just see, this old man has to lead the horse, and this boy is riding. What a foolish arrangement this is. They're such fools." So then they got to the next town, and they both walked next to the horse. And then the people said, "See what fools they are. They have a horse, and they're both walking." This is the nature of the material world. You can't win, especially when fate turns against you. You may be the most qualified person, you may be king of the world, you may be whatever you are, the greatest Hollywood personality or famous this or that. But when your karma changes, boom, you can be reduced to ashes in a moment. And you can be reduced to, and then all the newspaper headlines are there, such and such rascal, convicted of, accused of. And then he has to endure that. Our Nixon was, well, now our most recent past president, I think, has been indicted for criminal activity. Otherwise, before that, in Prabhupada's time, our Mr. Nixon resigned the presidency. And he'd been such a great man, then he was reduced to ordinary citizenship and less, because the ordinary citizen wasn't bad-mouthed in the headlines, and he was. So this is the forest of enjoyment we come to here to enjoy, and then there's 1,000 ways that we can be made to suffer. So sometimes Kadachit, this is one of them, Bhagnamana, Dangstra, his teeth of pride are just broken. His teeth of pride are just broken. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can sue, which is what we like to do in America. Anyone does anything, then, well, I'll sue you. Or you can try to fight back, or whatever it is. But if your karma has changed, nothing you can do. Hopeless. You badmouthed someone in your previous life, now you have to suffer. You did this, now that happens. On account of your past pious activities, you became a big man. Now, on account of your impious activities, you're thrown out. Or tortured, or, there's so many things that can happen. This is this is the way of the world. Oh, Bhagnamana Dangstra. And Durjana Dandashukar. And he may not have any teeth, but now he's he's attacked by Durjana Dandashukai. Durjana means envious people, nasty people. Nasty people, Durjana, nasty people, who are Dandashukai. They're like Dandashuka, like serpents. A serpent, that's what he does. He bites no matter what, out of envy. That's how they're depicted in Shastra, that the serpents It's their nature to bite. So envious persons now have a great time criticizing the fallen person who was so great, thought himself so great. Now the serpents and other creatures can punch him. And a labdha nidrakshana. He doesn't get any chance to sleep. Nidrakshana. Not a moment to sleep. A labdha means, labdha means not getting. Doesn't get even a moment to sleep. Vyatita hridayena, because his mind is so disturbed. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from its prestigious position. If someone's up, there's all sorts of people below planning how to drag him down. And then being anxious, he can't get any sleep. We can see, of course, a person in such a miserable condition, he's always so in such shock and such anxiety that he can't sleep. But even the ordinary person now can't sleep. The drugstores are full of medicines to help you sleep. The easiest thing to sleep. Every dog knows how to do it. No problem. But the human beings create such an anxious way of life. They create such a anxious way of life that they can't even sleep. Some people can sleep. Right, Nitai? Just checking. Those who have pure hearts, they can sleep. But those, the anxious persons, their minds are so disturbed. What is that? I have something in mind, but it's not there now. Anyway, guess it's not in the mind. So even to sleep, they have to take this, take that. Then they can sleep. Knock themselves out. Or we see that people, they're in such anxieties, they don't take the drugstore medicine for sleep. They just go to the bar and, Jack Daniels or somebody will put them to sleep. Then they become depressed because these drugs are essentially depressants. Alcohol is a depressant. So then they become chronically depressed. Then they have to take some antidepressant. Big selling item these days. Antidepressants. So something to put them to sleep so that their minds won't plague them, and something to wake them up so that they'll be able to function. He becomes more and more happy, gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. Anukshiyamana, Vigyan. Vigyan means his understanding, his consciousness, his intelligence, his ability to know, his knowledge of what's what. Anukshiyamana. Anu means gradually. Shiyamana becomes less and less. They become, again, big men, but then by drinking and drinking, taking drugs, this, that, their intelligence diminishes. Or the whole civilization becomes like that. Whole generations of people, hordes of people, taking this drug and that drug. And anukshiyamana, not seeing that we're becoming more and more stupid, more and more dull. Andakupe, andavat, patati. So in this condition, one falls down, patati, andakupe, in a blind well. Sometimes householder life is compared to a blind well, but here, that's not the specific comparison. It's just the darkness of material life. He's fallen into, what is that, patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha, to the ocean of birth and death, but then even in this one birth, fallen into such a miserable condition. And this was someone who thought, let me enjoy. Sometimes by some illicit attempt to enjoy, by theft, by rape, by this, by that, they try to enjoy and then they're thrown in prison. And then they become, there was some, these things sort of cross my desk now and then. There's some big name person, Martha Stewart, American lady. She had some television program, there was some television program about better life and happy life and this and that. And her name was on all sorts of things, you know, Martha Stewart paint, Martha Stewart chairs, Martha Stewart this, Martha Stewart that, you know, just to sell more products. And somehow she was caught cheating on her taxes or something, and then she went to Martha Stewart jail. And the newspapers were reporting about her life in jail. So this is how it goes. No one can, Mamavaya Duratya. Krishna has arranged his material energy in such a way that the more we try to enjoy the material energy, the more we become entangled and the more we suffer. The more we suffer. So our Krishna consciousness is meant provide the right way to uplift those who have fallen into this or the other miserable conditions described here in the chapter. Dina hina yata chila harinami Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nityananda Prabhu, they're chanting the holy name of Krishna and giving everyone the opportunity. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says elsewhere, Enecheo Shoti Maya Nashipuramaki, Harinam Mahamantra Thou to me Maki. I brought the right medicine, not this Pfizer, Merck, Bayer medicine, but the transcendental medicine. Enecheo Shoti Maya Nashipuramaki. Your other medicine, maybe it suppresses this and it triggers that and it creates some temporary this or temporary that. But this medicine erases Maya. It defeats Maya, cures the conditioned soul of the disease of illusion. Harinam Mahamantra. And bow to me, Maki Chaitanya, just take it. We're not even selling it, just take it. Bow to me, Maki. So this is our Krishna consciousness take rest. You're tired. You've been working too hard. Go take rest. I'm tired too, but I'm sitting here, so it sort of engages me. Something. And something, Maharaj. And a lot.
Can you hear the verse again?
Yes. Sanskrit, English? English. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. Rough.
You were explaining kind of how one can sleep at night, but I know devotees who also cannot sleep at night, even when they're chanting.
Yes, that's also true. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he couldn't sleep at night.
Right?
He'd be crying and be in ecstasy and couldn't sleep. I don't know if that's what's going on with our devotees, that they're all in ecstasy and so they can't sleep. Might be something else.
Nightmares.
Nightmares. I mean, I get them. I can tell you some of my nightmares sometimes. Not even I also do, everybody. Usually it's travel. Somehow or other I missed this plane or that. Devotees go out and distribute books more, then they'll find it easier to sleep at night. And book distributors don't have a problem sleeping. Or anyone who's just... Sometimes the mind is like that, our minds become too disturbed. So then, if we chant Hare Krishna, or just take some hard work, it's good for the mind. Clean the temple room, wash the pots. I have various antidotes for sleep deprivation, but not for sleeplessness, for insomnia. But it's not really the proper topic for a Bhagavatam class. If anyone has a problem, come see me. Got some patented remedies. Yes. No, but first, sorry. More Haraj?
I mean, we have the option always that when we can't sleep, we can chant.
We take it as an advantage. Can't sleep, chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said one time, so long you sleep, you waste your time. So Yeah, we take it as good. All right, I can't sleep. Let me chant, let me write, let me do some service. Take it as a blessing. Yes.
Krishna Maharaj, I heard many times that devotees, their karma is not there anymore, they have Krishna karma. But sometimes also I heard that we have to accept our karma and
Sometimes we hear that devotees have their karma destroyed, and sometimes we hear that we have to accept our karma.
yeah.
So it seems to be contradictory.
Yeah, and I have a speculation that
You have a speculation. Oh, that's always good. What's your speculation?
Maybe it is about the pure devotees that their karma is completely destroyed.
Maybe it's the pure devotees who have their karma completely destroyed.
Or not.
No, that's not bad. The first thing is actually, there's different kinds of karma. That's described in the Padma Purana. There's the karma for which we're suffering the results now, karma that we're, for things we've done, but nature hasn't quite caught up to us yet, but then she will, and we'll get the results. Then there's the things we're doing now that we'll suffer for later. Then there's the things we're planning to do, and then we'll do them, and then we'll suffer. And then things we're not even planning yet, but the desire is there. And then even the desire is not there yet, but it's sort of in a seed, and it'll come out at the appropriate time. So there's all these different stages of karma. And karmani nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhaja. Karma can be completely destroyed by bhakti yoga, by devotional service, but gradually. Prabhupada gives the example that a fan is unplugged but still turning. And some results may be there. Sometimes we get sick, and sometimes we get into some legal trouble. Sometimes this happens or that happens, on account of past karma. But the devotee takes it that my karma has been reduced. I cut my finger. Actually, I was meant to get my head cut off, but only my finger got a little caught by Krishna's mercy. You can take it that way. All of our karma is not 100% destroyed. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this, that if our karma was entirely destroyed, our bodies would disappear. Right? This body is a result of my past karma. If all my past karma were all the results of my past karma were suddenly to disappear, the body would evaporate. So it's not quite like that, but reduced. And most important, at the time of leaving this body, Chaksha Deha Punarjanma Nayati Mameti. The pure Krishna conscious person doesn't have to go back. He goes back to Godhead. Okay?
One more question. It is said that Hare Krishna mantra is destroying the karma. Also, it is said that Hare Krishna Maha mantra is destroying the karma also. Is it destroying this that you
Bhakti yoga and chanting Hare Krishna are the same thing. Shravanam Kirtanam. Bhakti yoga begins with hearing and chanting. Hearing is the first item, chanting is the next item. So whatever we say about Bhakti yoga applies to hearing, to chanting, to remembering.
And is it destroying also this bija?
Hmm?
Is it destroying this seed, what you was mentioning?
Is it destroying the bija, the seed, bija?
Any of these methods will destroy the seed, everything, down to the root. Parikshit Maharaj attained perfection by hearing, Shukadeva Goswami by kirtan, Prahlad by remembering. But by any one of these methods, one can get full perfection. Not only chanting, but chanting is so easy by comparison. Becoming Krishna's friend, surrendering everything that may not be within our scope. But we can chant Hare Krishna here. Anyone can do that. And make quick advancement. Is that okay?
I have one more question. I just read in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is saying in commentary that the person Bhagavata, serving to person Bhagavata, is serving to Bhagavatam, like reading Bhagavatam, following Bhagavatam, is same, and you can achieve the goal, the highest goal, by doing even separate one, just one of these two. Like, it sounds like we can just read Bhagavatam and we don't need to serve devotee.
Just read Bhagavatam and that's as good as serving the pure devotee. And Prabhupada's commenting, Nityam Bhagavata Seva. So Bhagavata Seva means service of Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, or service to the pure devotee. Both of them act. But everything is, how should we say, connected. If you want to read Bhagavatam, then you have to hear from someone. And how do we hear? Pranipatena, pariprashnena, sevaya. We serve. If you want to nityam bhagavata, if you want to constantly hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you can't do it without serving devotee. Syan mahat sevaya vidva punyatirtha. This is part of the process, not that, no, I'll just read Bhagavatam. I won't render any service. I won't accept the spiritual master. I'll just read Bhagavatam and I'll attain perfection. That's not what the Bhagavatam advises. It may work, you do that, you read Bhagavatam, and by reading Bhagavatam you say, oh, I'm not doing it right, I better find a spiritual master. Then it's good. But otherwise, if we think, no, I'll just read Bhagavatam.
I understand.
Okay. Something else? Yes.
Maharaj, would you like to elaborate a little bit more about becoming free of pride? Because, so much in today's class was about this becoming free of pride, but in a negative sense. But in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna explains that this is one of the items of knowledge, and we want to be free of pride for chanting nicely. So,
I see. Yeah, this is the difference. Like the materialist, he's forced to suffer. He's forced to accept trouble. The devotee just voluntarily accepts trouble. That's called tapasya. The materialist, his life is pride and prestige and all of that. Maya. He thinks that he's becoming great by Maya. So then Maya has to slap him. You fool, what nonsense your pride and prestige are. Even Indra, he gets his pride smashed by Krishna. So that's a blessing. But the devotee looks forward to that or cultivates that. He wants to become free from pride. The materialist, what is that? There are all these books on how to increase your, self-esteem, how not to think of yourself as less. And it means cultivating. I'm great. I'm really something. No, the devotee thinks that I'm completely dependent on Krishna. That's all. And Krishna is great. And if you want to be proud of Krishna. Be proud of the spiritual master.
Prabhupada used to be proud of his disciples.
Yeah. Prabhupada would be proud his disciples and the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's not personal pride. But Krishna is so great. Someplace Prabhupada was talking about how Nanda Maharaj is speaking to Yashoda Mai, oh, your son is so capable, he's able to, lift my shoes or something like that. And Yashoda Mai, oh yes. So she's proud of Krishna. That's all right. Yes.
The descriptions of chasing material enjoyment and getting so much anxiety, it seems like it only applies to the earthly planet, but does it apply also to heavenly pleasures?
This pride and all of that, heavenly, sure. Indra is the example. It becomes, and there are more examples, Navakubra and Manigriva. Many such examples. How the residents of the heavenly planets. Because if you're good looking, you become proud. If you're well educated, you become proud. If you have an aristocratic position, you become proud. You have power, you become proud. You have wealth, you become proud. So the residents of the heavenly planets, they have all these things. Beauty, wealth, sense gratification. If you have a beautiful girlfriend, you become proud. Boyfriend, girlfriend. So the heavenly planets, they all have all these things. And therefore it's difficult for them to become Krishna conscious, to be focused, Bhogacharya Prasaktana, and attached to enjoyment and opulence, pride. Then it's difficult. It's everywhere, the whole material world. Even the saying is, even the pauper is proud of his penny. The head of the garbage disposal unit is proud. He's the chief. What is that? What distinction is that? He's like the chief hog. But he's proud. The demons especially, they're absorbed in pride. They feed on it. Yes.
Maharaj, we see that in Narad Muni's pastimes, so when he was cursed to take birth as a simple boy, but by good fortune he remembered that his past he remembered. But I don't remember what bad deeds I did in my past life. Wouldn't it be nice if Krishna facilitated that we remember all the deeds that we did? So
wouldn't it be nice if we could remember everything of our past deeds so that we'd know what not to do? Yeah, there's been much discussion about this. The counterpoint and the contrary point is, imagine if we had to remember. I was the word cringe when I remember some of the things I've done in my childhood. I cringe when I remember some of the things I've done in my childhood, my youth, even things I've done in devotional service, mistakes. And you think it would be nice to remember all of those things from all of our past lives? It would be unbearable. Satchidananda Maharaj has spoken sometimes about his father was involved with the Nazi regime and not so nice activities. And he would wake up at night and be screaming. Just remembering things that I guess he later wished he hadn't done. So how nice would it be to remember all of it from all of our, it would be unbearable. If I can't sleep now, and now I'm going to remember everything from my past lives. Oh, excruciating. Krishna's kindness that I hardly, even I can forget something from this, even some of the things from this life I can forget. What are those called? Coping mechanisms. We have some way of coping with how unbearable our mistakes are, our stupidities, our embarrassments, our the retaliation that people have justifiably taken against us. And somehow or other we have some way of dealing with all that. We have to remember it from unlimited lifetimes. Therefore the method is given that instead of that, Krishna is kind. The kindness is, it just tells you, you've done it all. You want to remember what you ate as a pig, what you ate as a vulture, what you ate as a worm. You don't have to remember it all. Krishna just says you were all these things. You've done all of that. You've eaten this, you've had sex with that, you've done this, you've done that. It's all there in Shastra, you've done it all. Millions of lifetimes, we've all done all of these things. Now, Prabhupada says, just give this one life for Krishna. Better, that's, Krishna's more kind. Why isn't Krishna kind enough to let us remember? He's more kind. He lets you forget, but he tells you, this is the picture. Is that okay? And here's the way to get out. More important. Why do I want to remember it all? I don't know, this is not prescribed, you just remember everything. Just take shelter of Krishna. And remember something, but there's a place in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says we should remember what we were before we came to Krishna God. That will help us. But not that we wallow in it. Oh, I'm so fallen, I can never go. There's a place in Prayers of King Kulashekar, or in our Bhagavad Gita in the purpose where Prabhupada explains that to feel humble and regretful in someone is good to the extent that it helps us in Krishna consciousness. But when we go on, I'm so fallen, I can't serve Krishna, I'm so sinful that I can never, and then so you give up, that becomes pratikul. Unfavorable. That becomes just another kind of sense gratification. I'm so fallen. Enjoy, if I can't enjoy how great I am, I can enjoy how low I am. So I can relish my own, fallen position. So, no. Everything should be accepted in the spirit of accepting it as an impetus to serve Krishna more. Okay. Maharaj, more? Okay. What else? Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Danda Shukai. Danda Shra.
Jayadvaita Swami Maharaja ki
Jai.